to say, like, the show is so gripping. Like, I felt every part of my nervous system literally on edge while I was watching. And I think a noir crime thriller set in a place like Jamaica, which is typically in Western media depicted as like, a sunny island paradise, is something I've really not seen a lot before. So for Marlon, I wanted to ask you, where did the inspiration for the series come from? And why is this the lens you wanted to show Jamaica through?
Well, the truth is, Jamaica is a sunny island paradise. It is. The thing is, we fall in the danger of the single story, where we think that's the only story there is, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to produce that sunshine and those beaches. And the Jamaica behind the Jamaica we see is the Jamaica where I live. It's the Jamaica where I grew up. It's the Jamaica where your family probably grew up. And there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad, and there are secrets. And when you grow up in a country like ours, like Jamaica, or countries like Jamaica, the secrets sometimes threaten to come to the surface. I grew up in a house of cops. I grew up in a house my mom was a detective. So the whole sort of what's the story behind the story has always been something I grew up witnessing and doing. And it's one of the things that led me to become a novelist because, I always want to know what's the story behind the story. And for me, usually when I see stories that are set in the Caribbean or Africa or so on, it's just window dressing, where the character, usually white, has this big three-dimensional experience, and then we look at some elephants and an acacia tree and go home. And for me, Jamaica, not even Jamaica, Kingston, the city itself had to become a character. And it's interesting. It was interesting to see that even in Kingston, even in the course of the first episode, we see so many different Kingstons. It was important for me for us that we saw all or as much of Kingston, especially the Kingston that contradicts itself. In this season, this season, interchangeable.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Jamie and Simon, what drew you guys to the show? Like, why did you want to be involved in bringing a narrative like this to viewers on HBO?
Like for me, the best shows are revelatory. They carry you in on a kind of sometimes familiar pretext, which is what we have here, right? We have a cop drama, we have a missing persons case, but then they take you into a world or give you a perspective on the world unlike anything you've ever seen. So very, very quickly, alongside our missing persons case, we're taken into, and I know you've got another question on this, but we're taken into the world of Hibiscus and the Gully. And that is, it's a world unlike any audiences of drama internationally have probably experienced. And thematically, it's kind of enlightening and nourishing, and hopefully it's so well drawn that it can contribute to a cultural conversation. That's very, very rare in entertainment, right? Entertainment should have a function, or the best entertainment, I think, should have a function where it does spark conversation, and it provokes debate, and it allows us to sort of reassess what we thought we knew. So that was all of that, and the opportunity to work with one of the most exciting storytellers in the world sat next to me were what drew me to.
Oh, gee.
Yeah.
Very sweet. I came onto the project late, actually. I came onto the project during the post process, and these guys had already shot it. And I think what drew me to it initially, so I watched very early cuts of it, and already early on, what came through loud and clear was Marlon's voice, the strength of that cast, which were, I think, unbelievable, and Jamaica that I had never seen on television before. I thought it had, just kind of it's subversive, it's crackling with energy, it's pretty incredible. And I love that, like, anytime you think that you start to know a character, they shift. And it's full of surprises and ultimately just really singular. Yeah, so I was excited to come on.
I was actually really touched and only slightly surprised to see that you put such a big spotlight on the LGBT community, because that's something in, Jamaican media that either goes completely unacknowledged or is really focused on in a derogatory light. I mean, we still have some laws on the books that are, pretty primitive. And I'd love to know, like, where your inspiration came from centering that community, especially the gully, which is something I think a lot of people have no frame of reference for.
Well, a lot. One, being a queer person, I came up pretty, if most people come up to their appearance, I came up in the New York Times because I wanted to do it small.
Mhm.
But it's a complicated story. I think Jamaica's reputation as being homophobic is one-dimensional, but it's still earned. But at the same time, there are people who are living lives and living their lives out loud and full in Jamaica. And I wanted to show that. I didn't want to shrink away from the struggles we have, but I also didn't want to shrink away from the fact that people are living their lives. And it's complicated and it's messy and it's rewarding and sometimes tragic. And I think it was very important for me to show people that we are Jamaica too, and that we're living our lives too. In a lot of ways, they're called the Gully Queens was a huge inspiration for this show. Certainly not just for Hibiscus, but inspired me that I want to tell this story. The thing I love about detective stories is that detective stories really sometimes begin in the margins. And it begins in the parts of society we don't want to see, which is why it becomes a very great vehicle for showing all the range of a country or a city. You go as above, so below so often with a detective show, and it's one reason why I love the genre. And it allowed for that. It allowed for us to bring sort of three-dimensionality to these lives that, as you say, usually don't get mentioned or mentioned in a negative way. And for me, it was very important that we see all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for this project, for bringing Jamaica in such a multifaceted way to the screen, for highlighting the Jamaican queer community, which is something that's really important to me. And yeah, we look about with Taloa, so thank you.
Great
Thank
to
you
meet
so
you.
much. Nice to meet
Thank you.
you. Take care.
Bye.